Hello, and thank you for joining us. We are officially 1 month into the new administration, and President Trump is continuing with his efforts to reshape the federal government. Hello, and thank you for joining us. We are officially 1 month into the new administration, and President Trump is continuing with his efforts to reshape the federal government. He signed another executive order Wednesday, this one aimed at the, quote, reduction of the federal bureaucracy. It will abolish federal advisory committees, including one that advises the health department on long COVID and a council that advises on regulating consumer prices. It's one of at least 73 executive orders penned by the president so far, including 16 on foreign policy, 10 on diversity, equity, and inclusion, 7 on immigration, and 13 on the federal government. Cutting down the federal workforce has also been a defining part of President Trump's first month back in the White House. CBS News has learned more than 6,000 IRS employees are expected to be fired by the end of the week, including 3,500 from the Small Business Self-Employed Division. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cortez joins me now. Nancy, 1 month, 73 executive orders, more than 100 executive actions. Is this a new record, and is it safe to say we have a clear picture of the president's plans over the next 4 years?
It's definitely a new record, and it's an indication of how quickly this administration plans to move now that President Trump is back in office. And it's a striking change, Lindsay, from his first term when he and many of his aides were learning the ropes. And frankly, many of his aides were trying to hold him back from some of the things that he wanted to do. That is not the case this time around. And you pointed out the job cuts across the federal government. They are moving ahead with full force on those, particularly when it comes to the IRS. We are told that they are cognizant of the fact that we are in tax filing season right now. And so their first rounds of cuts primarily affect people who work in enforcement in the small business branch in particular. So they say it won't necessarily have much of an impact on people who are trying to file their taxes right now.
What does enforcement mean, like audits?
Correct. So if you don't pay your taxes, if you underpay your taxes, if you lie or cheat on your taxes, that's when enforcement might be in order. And it's important in the small business section in particular, because that's often where they find tax underpayment at higher rates than in larger corporations or in individual taxes. And so it's likely that it'll have some kind of effect. We're looking at a cut of about 5% of the IRS workforce, but those cuts are going to be implemented in stages. So it remains to be seen whether we'll be looking at less revenue down the road as a result of these cuts.
I guess that's a good thing. I don't know what an enforcement IRS agent is. They haven't come knocking on my door yet. President Trump has repeatedly vowed that Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, those are not on the chopping block when Republicans in Congress propose cuts to the budget. But this week,
Republican support only. It does a lot of different things. It beefs up immigration enforcement, more physical barriers to do with the somewhere else. Well, it is really hard to find $4.5 trillion to easily cut from the federal budget. It's as he supports their big bill. It has a lot of his priorities in it. He has also said, as recently as the other night in an interview with Fox News, that he's not going to touch Medicaid.
Looking for you. You're watching Fox 4 News at 5.
When 1,000 people are losing their jobs, that means there's going to be 1,000 households without a paycheck.
Hundreds of Kansas City IRS employees went into the office today, but not to work. They cleaned out their desks and were escorted back out. Layoffs, part of the cuts by the Trump administration aimed at government waste. I'm John Holt.
I'm Bria Love. That move comes as the tax season heats up, with millions of Americans set to file their tax returns in the days and weeks ahead. Fox 4's Malik Jackson is live at the IRS campus near downtown tonight. So Malik, these layoffs go beyond the complex that you're standing in front of, right?
Yes, that's correct, Bria. This affects every single IRS building across the Kansas City metro area. I actually spoke on the phone this morning with an IRS employee who had just started with the agency a few months ago. As she was packing up her desk, she had started this job to get on her feet. Now her, along with nearly 1,000 others, notified yesterday that today would be coming, and now nearly 1,000 of those workers without a job. An eerie cold day here across the metro as 1,000 families now confronted with devastating news. The pay they relied on is gone.
I feel really, really bad for those families. Every job right now means everything to every household, especially the economy that we're in right now.
The Trump administration's new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, seeks to cut back on what they describe as government overspending. This local development is part of a broader wave of terminations, with the AP reporting that 7,000 probationary IRS employees will be laid off nationwide by the end of the week. 1,000 of those in our backyard, confirmed by the IRS union. The cuts come at a crucial time, smack dab in the middle of tax season. But Williams overall doesn't think your taxes will be affected as much as just the workload increase on the IRS employees who still remain.
There's enough employees there that should be done. There shouldn't be any change in how it's done.
The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, a law supported solely by Democrats, provided the IRS with additional funding. The aim was to enhance enforcement efforts. The IRS announced a significant initiative targeting 125,000 wealthy non-filers, specifically those earning $400,000 or more per year. This effort was part of a broader strategy to address tax evasion among high earners. The effort was successful, with the IRS recovering an impressive $4.7 billion in back taxes throughout last year. Now, Williams says, as unfortunate as it is that our neighbors here across Kansas City are without jobs, the impact on you should be minimum. He says that it's always easier to file your taxes electronically versus the manual way in mailing it in. Of course, if we're one of those that has been affected by this, you can go to fox4kc.com and scroll to the bottom of this story, and there is a link to resources to Williams Group, and they can help you out through this difficult time.
Is your IT
Can we just follow your questions?
Yes. Yeah, well, we can do a talk with either one.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we start with you?
Yeah,
so
just
give us an overview of what's going on?
Yeah. You ready? All right. Yeah, can you kind of just give us kind of like an opening remark just about the meeting and basically what it means for a lot of these workers?
Well, today's a sad day in America, and it's especially a sad day for federal workers who just happen to be Americans, and mothers and fathers and veterans, and are the backbone, are part of the backbone of this country. So today is a sad day at the IRS.
And obviously you just came out of a meeting. What all did you hear from them?
Well, I conducted a meeting on behalf of NTEU Chapter 84 as the president of our labor union, and I spoke with the employees, and I shared with them a number of things. I touched on the presidential executive orders, the presidential memorandums. the possibility of forthcoming large cuts in the federal government, RIFs, and these things are agency-wide. So these cuts are not just at the IRS. Today just happens to be D-Day for the IRS across the nation for our probationary employees. Sad day.
We know the Orlando office was affected. What other offices in Central Florida were affected as well with that?
Well, the local offices in Central Florida, our main offices is downtown Orlando, where we're at, but we also have offices in Daytona Beach, in Melbourne, Florida, and in Lakeland. So those fall within the NTEU Chapter 84 oversight in terms of the union.
I know, Deborah, you were one of the employees that were unfortunately laid off. What's going through your head right now?
It's a hard day. I wasn't expecting this because we were still believing that merit was going to be play a big role into this, and unfortunately, this has nothing to do with merit. So I am disappointed.
Yeah. And how did you find out? I know that you told me that you received an email.
Yeah, last night we received an email to report to the office, and this morning at 11 we got a termination letter.
And, have you thought about what the next steps for you are after this?
No, I need to rethink my career because I took a big leap of faith to go to the government. I was working in the private sector for over 20 years, and I used to teach as well. So now I need to really stop and rethink what are my next steps.
And I know that it's a question for both of you all. When it comes to the IRS, where does that leave this office, seeing as that so many workers just got let go?
I believe it's going to be hard to perform their jobs. There's not enough people to really do what needs to be done for the American people.
So the IRS is this, what's happening here today and across the United States, these reductions, these terminations are going to impact the services that the IRS provide. So it's going to have an impact on taxpayer refunds, identity theft issues, and not only the IRS. Each and every federal agent that's losing tens of thousands of probationary employees, it's going to affect the American people. It affects us as Americans. We're Americans. We're veterans. We're a cross-section of America. But these agencies and these indiscriminate probationary cuts are going to affect every federal agency and the services they provide. A Veterans Administration, veterans, Social Security, signing up for Social Security, you've been denied, contesting the denial, veterans seeing their doctors, and on and on and on and on. It's sad. It's a sad day, and it doesn't make any sense.
And we know that the Trump administration has been aggressive when it comes to basically doing these type of efforts and whatnot. You were talking about the ripple effects of that. Is that kind of what you all are worried about, how it can affect people later on?
Well, it impacts the whole community. We are Americans. We have mortgages, we have car payments, we have kids at school. So every single one of the employees that got fired today needs to think how we are going to do next. What are we going to do next? It's hard.
The president issued an additional executive order on the 11th of February. And in that executive order, which one can access on whitehouse.com, it indicates that, and it directs a significant reduction in force across the federal government for each and every agency. And that the directive was that be reported back up to the White House through OMB and OPM and DOJ within 240 days. So if the president's executive order, if that executive order is implemented and carried out, it's going to be a significant impact on federal workers, which are everyday Americans, and it's going to have a significant impact on the services that Americans count on and pay taxes for, but are going to be delayed. They may not be received.
It's counterintuitive, it's counterintuitive to the efficiency goal of DOJ, right? We are trying to justify these firings with efficiency and lack of merit. There's nothing efficient about firing employees that are doing their jobs, getting trained and have experience to do their jobs. It's not efficient, and it doesn't. It has nothing to do with merit. It is absurd.
And that is a great point that was just made, because the U.S. government spends hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars, on recruiting new employees, on background investigations for new employees, on their respective training, which may take a year collectively through different periods, and then through having OJIs, on-job instructors, actually working with them one-on-one, and then you just indiscriminately tell them to go? What a waste of money. And as you say, that's just counterintuitive. I mean,
NBC 10 breaking news.
Breaking right now, hundreds of IRS probationary workers laid off. NBC 10 has learned about 400 employees from the Philadelphia office have begun receiving letters saying they no longer work for the agency. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Tracy Davidson.
And I'm Fred Shropshire. The Associated Press confirmed earlier today that the IRS will lay off roughly 7,000 IRS workers across the country. Those cuts are part of the Trump administration's ongoing effort to downsize the federal workforce. NBC 10's Brian Sheehan joins us live with those breaking details. Brian?
Yeah, Fred and Tracy, about 400 probationary employees are affected here locally. We are told a majority of them, about 250 to 300, received letters earlier today, and that the rest of them who work on night shift will receive them later today. Just a short time ago, we spoke with the executive president of the National Treasury Employees Union, Chapter 71. He says some IRS employees started receiving layoff letters earlier today, and that the layoffs affect probationary employees. Those are IRS employees who have not yet completed 1 year of continuous federal service. The layoffs are part of the Trump administration's effort to reduce the size of the federal workforce through the Department of Government Efficiency. I spoke with one of those employees who says he went into work today and had issues logging in. He and his coworkers sat around and waited for instruction and received their letter just before 11:30. We spoke to the union's executive president about those letters. Here's what he had to say.
The letters are willfully incorrect and, to our belief in NTEU, unlawful. They say essentially your ability, skills, and performance do not make you a fit for federal employment. And additionally, your performance is not up to par. This is patently untrue. These are being all issued with the exact same wording to every single one of these probationary employees, whether they have just gotten out of training and have no performance metrics, whether they have been here for almost their entire year and have very good performance appraisals.
Now, as I mentioned, I spoke with one of those probationary employees who was laid off today. We'll hear from him when I see you again in about an hour. A lot to unpack here. Live in Center City, I'm Brian Sheehan, NBC 10 News.
Okay, we'll see you in about an hour, Brian. Thank you. And as we mentioned, today's layoffs are just the latest.
IRS in the Richmond Fed. Some people working for the IRS in the Richmond Federal Building were told to turn their badges in today. We've not been able to confirm how many jobs were cut, but we've been told that they were probationary employees in multiple departments. Numerous employees stepped out of the federal building in downtown Richmond Thursday afternoon with their personal belongings in a box.
I'm kind of numb. Yeah.
Sean Hartley is one of a number of federal IRS probationary workers in the Richmond office that were let go.
I'm a lot emotional. I'm trying to hold it together, but I'm the primary income in my family. and I don't know what this is going to mean for us personally.
Hartley had only been in the department for 6 months. She says she hadn't been formally given a reason for her firing. However, her bosses indicated her job was eliminated as part of President Trump's efforts nationwide to cut down on government spending.
We're doing all that boots on the ground work that has to get done. Those are the people who are being cut. Somehow eliminating the lowest paid employees on the ladder seems efficient. I have no clue how that seems efficient.
The Biden administration invested heavily in the IRS through an $80 billion infusion of funds in the Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act, which included plans to hire tens of thousands of new employees to help with customer service and enforcement, as well as new technology to update the tax collection agency. However, the new administration is working to shrink the size of the federal workforce in an effort to radically cut spending and restructure the government's priorities. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin addressed the federal cuts earlier this week.
This process that the federal government is going through is one that is needed because of the inefficiency and bloat of the federal government. This workforce, which is talented and deep and experienced, is part of Virginia. And so we want to make sure that first they know that we understand, and second of all, we're here to help them.
CBS 6 viewers were divided on the decision. Elizabeth Alexander wrote on her Facebook page, quote, "No one's purpose or importance was considered. Doesn't seem efficient or effective." While Dennis Robinson wrote, quote, "The government is too big, so yes, I support getting it under control." While Hartley doesn't know what's next for her, she is certainly contemplating it all. She says she chose to leave her job in the private sector to serve the public.
And I was proud to do a job where I was serving my nation, not just getting a paycheck, but doing work that actually contributed. I guess I just have to start searching for a job and hoping I find one in time to pay my bills, keep a roof over my head.
The Richmond employees that I spoke to that were laid off tell me that they didn't receive any type of formal explanation for why their job had been eliminated. They told me that their access to the building was cut. They had to turn in their badges and they would receive a letter in the mail with an explanation. In Richmond, I'm Maggie Marshall, CBS 6 News.
Hey guys, my name is
A number of Internal Revenue Service workers in Denver are being let go as part of mass layoffs across the country and part of the Trump administration's push to shrink the federal workforce. Many workers believe the layoff could lead to major delays this tax season. Fox's Vincent Arenas has more.
Laid off IRS workers in Denver stunned after getting news first thing this morning they were being let go.
I'm concerned. I am concerned. It's we didn't get notification about this.
Nearly 7,000 federal IRS workers were let go across the country. The president of the local union in Denver said as many as 150 probationary workers were laid off here. Patricia Allen tells us the email said the workers were let go because of poor performance, but that there's no paper trail to prove that.
There's no severance, there's no next week you'll get paid for nothing.
A Trump advisor says mass layoffs are part of the Trump administration's intensified efforts to shrink the federal workforce. The administration is focused primarily on all probationary workers who have not yet gained civil service protection.
I think our objective is to make sure that the employees that we pay are being productive and effective.
One worker said the layoffs were all part of a political agenda.
We're heartbroken. We have worked so hard. I have never worked so hard at a job in my life. Elon Musk is running this show, and Donald Trump's letting him.
Several laid-off workers said people should expect major delays while trying to get information this tax season because of the layoffs.
It will be huge. I think it's going to be very big, yeah.
It will.
With all of the losses that they're having, it's like, who's going to do the job?
That was Vincent Arenas reporting there for Fox.
The rumors picked up late last week that the IRS would lay off thousands of probationary employees across the country.
I'm just kind of lost because this was like my plan.
Thursday morning, employees say the official email dropped.
Since we fall under the probationary period of 1 year, that they found it that we are not essential, and that we were going to be let go.
It's heartbreaking. Because we all wanted the job.
Yeah, it's hard, you know. We got bills, we got kids to take care of, you know, daycares and...
The National Treasury Employees Union represents many of them.
There's over 120 members that have been removed from their jobs today.
Local reps were on site today.
This is not a buyout. They fired these people for no reason whatsoever.
The layoffs seem to span various departments and job titles, from the call center to revenue officers and beyond.
It wasn't a bloated environment. And, you know, when people have this assumption, people come here and just sit around and don't do anything. No, I worked with very intelligent people.
And it's offensive to tell me that I am a lazy federal worker. And I got news for you. The federal benefits aren't as great as you all think they are. We're not here living off of the American people tax dollar. We're trying to save it.
And all of this happening in the middle of tax season.
They're firing people, and I thought we were short-staffed, and now you're firing us? That makes no sense.
People, if taxpayers need help, it's going to be harder to get that help and to actually talk to an actual human being versus deal with an automated system. And we'll see the effects of that.
All the folks we talked to today tell me they were hired just within the last year, many of them through a program under the last administration, the Inflation Reduction Act, the whole point being improving the IRS customer service, enforcement, and new technology. Their union tells us they are weighing next steps that might include pursuing a lawsuit. A little early to say, but that's something they're exploring right now if they have that option. There was a lot of sadness today, guys. I saw two things: people that were devastated and people who were furious walking out of there today. They're like, listen, we are in a non-political job. We are civil servants. All of them felt this was purely a political move, and they were caught in the crosshairs.
And they're needed. Right now, it's tax season. Like, that boggles the mind.
It doesn't add up. But also, I'm curious, did they talk to you about, do they get severance?
I asked them. I'm told no. That's what they said. I think there's a lot of questions about the legality of how all this is getting rolled out and the timeline they get notification. These employees in their union told me no severance. They could be eligible to file for unemployment, and they get their health benefits for only one more month. But they were like, we've got pregnant employees. We got people with various health things. You have your insurance. So they're all panicking. Like, how long do we maybe have coverage for? A lot of that's, they're still trying to figure out.
And this happened, they found out.
This morning in an email, like at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Some of them were hearing the rumors, but like today they walked in and they walked out before noon.
Speechless.
No job.
All right, Jennifer Meckles, thank you.
Happening right now, protesting in front of the IRS offices in Ogden as federal union workers are rallying against the recent layoffs by the Trump administration. Thanks for joining us for 2 News at 5. I'm Heidi Hatch.
And I'm Brian Schnee. These layoffs are part of the Department of Government Efficiency led by Elon Musk to cut back on federal spending. The IRS building in Ogden, just one of the biggest processing centers for the IRS, and it's a crucial center for processing tax returns.
Leslie Duarte is there right now. And Leslie, what are you seeing?
Heidi, Brian, this rally is just getting started. There are about, I say, 50 employees, but more and more are showing up every moment that we're here. According to the union that represents the employees, that's the NTEU 67 union, there are about 7,500 IRS employees in Ogden. As of this evening, there are at least 100 employees who will be laid off by the end of this week. I also am learning that many employees, including some in management, don't know exactly who or when people will be laid off, but some people have been said that they will be deferred start until May 15 after tax season. And right now you're hearing the union representatives talking to the crowd that are advising to not talk to media. But we did talk to the union representative, and you'll hear from him now.
We are not what's wrong with our government. These are critical positions, and they're not just wasteful positions. These are the people who process your tax returns. These are the people who get your refunds out to you. These are not just, employees who have some meaningless job.
How will these impacts and layoffs impact the area and people? We'll hear from the city of Ogden how they will support their residents.
Tell me what happened today. Tell me what happened today.
So, I went in at my normal time. When I arrived there, everybody was in a very downtrodden mood. And when I went to my computer, everybody was having some technical issues. Like none of our computers were really loading up either the programs that we needed to operate or like Teams. My story is the Teams. That's kind of how I figured out that we were getting fired today. Was when I went in, I logged into Teams, and I sent you the photo of what I saw when I went to log in. And that's when I left my cubicle and I went around to everybody else I work with. I'm like, hey, what's your Teams look like? Some were having trouble, some were able to log in. It was very, very chaotic. There was no organization to it at all. And basically we just sat around for the rest of the day. Talk about government efficiency. We literally sat there and did nothing all day long, while we waited for our fate. So again, we got our email saying that we were fired after sitting around all day knowing we were fired. And then we turned in our equipment about an hour or so later, and then we were escorted out of the building.
What do you make of what happened to you and your colleagues today? We hear about 400 employees, including yourself, were laid off.
It's unfair. I was unemployed, so I was laid off. I was laid off before this job, and it took me 8 months to apply and go through all the background checks and everything I had to do to get this job. And then 4 months later, now I'm in the same boat I was in before. I don't know how to feel. I'm kind of numb right now. I went out to lunch with one of my buddies after immediately it happened. And, what can you do at this point? Aside from reach out to the news organizations, reach out to our senators, reach out to our representatives. It was an illegal firing. My performance was good. I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. I was even one of those government employees that went every day of the week. I had to report every Monday through Friday, 7 to 3:30. That was my tour duty, and that's what I served. And here I am.
Did they give you any inkling as to is there a package that you're aware about that exists right now? Or?
Well, no, not for us. I did not take that deferred resignation, which now looking back on it, it's kind of a regret, but who knows if that's even going to be honored in the end anyway, too. So I just feel pretty lost. I don't know where I'm going to go forward from here. I know the job market's not great right now. And what occurred today across the country is not going to help the job market.
What do you make of the Trump administration's actions?
I thought that he was I did support him. I was a Trump supporter. You know, when he talks about government waste and all that, yes, I'm behind it. I believe there is a lot of stuff in the government that needs fixing, and that's part of the reason why I actually wanted to work for the government. Actually, to help change the things that are wrong in the world. You know, and I thought that someone with like his business acumen would have come in with a fine-tooth comb and actually found it, instead of coming in with a wrecking ball and destroying people's lives for no reason.
Were you given a reason for the termination?
That my performance no longer fits the mission of the IRS.
Can you say whether or not your manager, your whoever, your superiors, was it very just about face, or did it seem like
No, our management was scrambling to help us today. Management and union. I can't talk good about them because of where I'm at, but I mean, they did everything they could to help us today. And even some of the higher up management were sympathetic, and they understood where we were coming from. And I don't think they wanted us to go either. This was an executive action outside of his scope of power.
Have you been able to think about what you're going to do next in terms of dealing with this situation?
Not yet. I'm still kind of digesting it. You know, I can't say it was a shock, because I mean, we've been going through this mental torment for 2.5 weeks now. So I can't say it like I was blindsided and I'm shocked. You know, but when the hammer finally dropped, it still hurt, you know?
Well, I'm very sorry to hear what happened to you and your colleagues. Is there anything else you would like people to know?